special thank you, obviously, to Monica and to Mike. Thank you so much for hosting us tonight. You know, it's kind of interesting because there are old friends and new friends in the room, and I'm trying to decide where to start. But, and I promise I'll be brief because we're all standing and you're all enjoying yourselves so much outside. But when I first came to UNICEF, what I knew about UNICEF was a little orange box. Trick or treat for UNICEF. How many of you have ever trick or treated for UNICEF? Okay, so 1 in 10 Americans actually has trick or treated for UNICEF, and yes, we do still do the trick or treat for UNICEF program. We actually raise between $4 and $5 million a year on our trick or treat for UNICEF program, so it's pretty remarkable. But I have the privilege to grow up in a home where we were taught at a very young age that your voice matters. You know, I am the child of a child refugee. This is my mom, actually, sitting there. This is the whole family. And I think that she taught us very early on, how lucky we were to be in a country where we could be whatever it was that our heart set for us to be. But she also taught us the privilege of standing up for those whose voices may not be heard. And so when UNICEF called me and said, you know, do you want to come and work for us? I have to say again, all I knew was that little orange box, but it was pretty attractive right off the bat. And I spent a lot of time studying what does UNICEF really do? Who are we really? And the mission being very clear, UNICEF does whatever it takes to save a child anywhere in the world, but every day, yesterday, today, tomorrow, in 190 developing countries and territories, 14,000 boots on the ground. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, doing whatever it takes. And sometimes that could be water, sometimes that could be sanitation, sometimes that's nutrition, sometimes it's child protection or HIV education, or ensuring that once we save that child has a life worth living. And that is about education, that is about giving them the opportunity to dream and to hope. And so I read all of that, and it sounded really good, and then I went on the interview and I said, why should I come and work for you? And they said, because after you take this job, we're going to bring you over to Africa. We're going to put a baby in your arms. We're going to teach you how to immunize a child. You'll immunize that child. And if you do nothing else for the rest of your life, you will know there's a child alive somewhere because of what you did. It's a pretty compelling job thing to get them to say yes. And they did do that. They took me to Africa very soon and early on in my tenure. I've had the privilege since then to visit, and actually we just recently counted this in anticipation of our annual meeting, and I believe I just come back just before our annual meeting from the Central African Republic, and that was my 100th trip for UNICEF, so it was pretty amazing. My children are appreciative of the frequent flyer miles, but I will tell you, when I got to Africa the first time and I did get to immunize that child, I really got to see what UNICEF does on the ground. And it is a remarkable thing to begin to understand that there are these 14,000 people who put the world's children first and themselves second. And often they do it at risk. And even more often they do it without the privilege of even having their families in the countries with them. And it is really, really remarkable. But of those 100 trips, there have been 3 things that are the same in every country I have visited, and some of you who know me have heard me say this before, but you know, wherever there are children, there is some kind of a ball. I don't know what it is about mankind, but we have something innate in us. There's always a kid throwing something, and there's always a kid catching it and then throwing it back. And it may not be leather or rubber like we're used to, it's often rags tied with string, but kids play ball everywhere in the world. And the second thing that I've learned is in all my trips is that if I sit on the ground long enough, a child will sit on me. That my lap does not belong to me, that belongs to the world. And they never ask, they just plop. And then when they're done, and I've always kind of wondered, well, you know, I guess if I lost a little weight, maybe it wouldn't be so comfortable, but they just kind of decide they've had enough. And then they turn around and they give you this hug before they leave, and it's probably the nicest part of every day when you're working. But the third thing that I've seen in every country that I've visited is that as parents, as soon-to-be grandparents, where are you? Soon-to-be grandparents, as aunties, uncles, dads, sisters and brothers of kids, we all want the same thing for our children. We want them to be safe. We want them to be happy. We want them to have a hot meal, go to bed under a warm blanket. We want them to dream really big dreams. And as the adults in their lives, we want to try to make those dreams come true. We may not measure success the same way in every country in the world. You know, the mother in Sierra Leone tells me she prays her child will have 2 goats instead of the 1 goat that she has. I pray one of my 3 sons makes enough money that I get to retire early. There's definitely, we both want for our kids that they get to fulfill that thing in their heart and that they get a life that's easier and better than ours. And that is not defined by geography, and it's not defined by borders. That's defined by being grown-ups in a world full of children. But the other thing that I've seen is that today, as we enjoyed our day, 15,000 kids today died of causes we already know how to prevent, but we didn't get there in time, all under the age of 5. So they didn't die from an earthquake we couldn't predict or a disease we don't have a cure for. They died from things like diarrhea, lack of water. They froze to death because they didn't have a winter coat. 15,000 kids yesterday, 15,000 today, 15,000 tomorrow. In the 1980s, that number was 35,000 each and every day. And in the ensuing years, the world's population has tripled. So theoretically, if we had done nothing, over 100,000 kids would be dying each day. So on the one hand, we celebrate at UNICEF that we brought that number down to 15,000. But I can also tell you, when you have to look in the face of a mom who just lost a child to something you know you could have done something about, that even the death of 1 child, the death of 1 that you could have prevented is 1 too many. And so we began a campaign many years ago called I Believe in Zero. I wrote a book called I Believe in Zero. It is stories and voices of the children that I've met over the 12 years and 100 trips that I've taken. And I will tell you, don't wait for the movie, please buy the book. And it also is a very big write-in campaign. I would like Meryl Streep to play me when I do but I can tell you, it is part of what brings us and brings me here tonight. Because the first time that I ever bore witness to a child dying, the child died of tetanus. I went to Sierra Leone. I had the privilege to travel with Salma Hayek, who was doing a campaign for Pampers at the time, that for every pack of Pampers that was sold, they donated 1 tetanus vaccine. And so Salma and I had been around, we'd been fundraising, promoting the campaign, and then we went to Sierra Leone to be part of actually immunizing moms. Tetanus is a disease that if you immunize mom or any woman of childbearing age, she will pass that immunity on to her unborn child or onto a child. And the reason that's so critical is that in the majority of places in the world, women still give birth at home. And when home is a mud hut, anything you cut the umbilical cord with will infect your child with tetanus. So the best way to combat this horrific disease is to get out there and vaccinate the children, the mothers, in anticipation of the birth of that child. So someone I got off the plane in Sierra Leone, which maybe that's a sidebar later for those who are interested, I can tell you the plane ride story, which is pretty funny. But and I got a call from the Minister of Health who said to me, we've just admitted a baby into the hospital in the town we were in, and who has tetanus. Have you ever seen the disease? Well, I had never seen the disease. You know, in the United States, you step on a nail, you get a tetanus shot. Before you go to college, you get a tetanus shot. You know, most of our public schools even now require tetanus vaccines, and so I've never seen this disease in my career. And so I went over to the hospital with Salma to see this child. We got to the hospital, and it was a dirt floor hospital, no running water, and there are no nurses. Basically, mom stays in the hospital with her child who sleeps on a mat and goes outside and lights a fire and cooks a meal and brings it back in and has a chamber pot for that child. It is an entirely different concept of what a hospital really is. And off in a corner, in a little curtained off area, was a woman whose name was Menumata. She was 18 years old, and her 6-day-old baby, who at that point did not yet have a name. In Africa, often they don't name a baby till the 6th day, and we had gotten there in the morning. The baby did not have a name yet. And I walked into this little curtained off area, and Manumata did not speak any English. I did not speak her tribal dialect, so I smiled, she smiled. She had no idea who I was, didn't know her. And the only thing I could do is to sit on this little bench that she was sitting on and take her hand and hold her hand. And there on the floor, you know, kind of raised up from the floor, was her baby. And the baby was just breathing in pain. Tetanus is a horrific disease. It makes a baby super sensory. You can't touch the baby, it hurts the baby. You can't, if there were electricity, turn a light on, it hurts the baby's eyes. You can't sing to the baby, noise hurts the baby's ears. So all of those things as a mom that are so instinctive of what we do when our children are scared, when they hurt, you can't do any of them. And so I sat with her and I held her hand, and her baby was just convulsing in pain while my team was working the phones to try to find the medication, $2.70 worth, that would save this child's life, except that we couldn't find it anywhere in the country of Sierra Leone. And as we sat there, after about an hour, I saw the color drain out of that baby's hand. And I knew the baby had died. And I knew that the mom didn't know. And you're there and you're holding a woman's hand, and you know in a few minutes this woman's life is never going to be the same. And you know, when people talk about wanting to stop time, I just look, if I could have, I would have. Because you just know she's never going to be the same. And you sit there and very selfishly, all you can do is think about how lucky you are that you're going home to your own children. And so I got up and I went and got this man with a sixth grade education. He was the medical assistant. And I walked out of the curtained area and he told her, and I will tell you, I heard her screams for weeks. It was horrific. And that is when I believe in zero began. That is where the words came from, because I will never, ever again want to sit in front of a woman whose child I could have saved. But we didn't, because we didn't have the resources, we didn't get there in time, and yet today, 15,000 of them did. So we launched a campaign with Kiwanis. The goal of the campaign, it's called Eliminate. You can't eradicate tetanus because it's a spore, so it will always exist. We can just prevent humans from contracting it. And working with Kiwanis and our partners, I want to give you the number correct. Since 1999, and we launched this campaign, we have vaccinated 151 million women against tetanus, protecting them and their kids. And we have eliminated the disease in 45 of the 59 countries that we sought to eliminate it. But we still have, as you heard, 45 out of 59, so we still have some to go. And so we have really been out there now, reinvigorating, because we are at that last mile. We can do this. We can make this a disease that just because you're born in a different continent than ours, you don't have to contract this disease. We can make that happen. And so the Eliminate Project has provided to UNICEF approximately $60 million in funding so far, and we still have a ways to go. So I'm very excited that Mark and Anna Marie Gordon have given us a challenge grant. They have given us a challenge grant of $50,000 tonight to anyone who makes a gift. They will match. And I really believe that we can and we will, in the next year, reach those last countries. I really believe that. I didn't believe when we started the campaign we could do it as quickly as we have what we have. I'm going to wrap up with a last story, and then if there are questions I'm happy to answer. And some of you in the room have heard about this little boy, but you're going to get to hear about my kid. So this is my hero. This is my favorite child right here. He travels. This picture goes everywhere with me these days. And the reason is, you know, when we work in country, and Gada, who's standing in the back there, she worked for UNICEF for many years in a number of very difficult situations. She will attest to this. The UNICEF workers in country, they're like the Pied Pipers. You know, we're the blue people. We wear blue shirts. The kids know the blue shirts, and they know that those are safe people. So what happens when you walk into like a refugee camp or anything else with your blue shirt, you get swarmed by kids. You know, you always have 5 or 6 who want to hold your hand, and you've got a couple on your legs, and you kind of do that, you know, that elephant walk thing. The kids will love you as you try to work. And in the camps, we start work really early. So I was in the Zachary refugee camp, that's where this young boy was, and I walked out of my tent really early in the morning, and there he was. So he's about 3.5 years old, and it's winter, so I want you to see how this child is dressed, because it's winter, he has no shoes on. And there's a swarm of kids, but he's one of the shy ones. And there's always a couple of shy ones, and they walk behind you. You know, you try to make eye contact with them, and they quickly look away, and all day long, that's the kid I try to talk to. And half the time you don't succeed, but the kid who doesn't want to talk to you is always the one you want to talk to. So he was behind me when I started. With him was his sister, who was about 12, and she was carrying a third sibling, a baby on her hip the whole day. And we worked all day long. We started early, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. It's now about 5 o'clock, and the sun is starting to set, and we're starting to put all of our stuff away. And we realized we had not eaten all day, which meant that these children who had followed us the entire day, they too had not eaten all day. I don't know about any of you with kids, but I know what it's like in my house if breakfast wasn't on the table by a certain hour. So you're struck by that, and you realize these children are very accustomed to not eating every day. And because they hadn't complained, they hadn't noticed it, and they had just stayed with us all day. And about halfway through the day, I had been working in a breastfeeding tent, in a tent where we teach women how to breastfeed their babies and encourage breastfeeding. And we give the women these little biscuits, these micronutrient biscuits, so they can keep their health up in an effort to be able to feed their babies. And they wanted me to taste one of the biscuits. And in all honesty, I was trying very hard at the time not to eat carbs. So I had palmed my biscuit and put it in my backpack. So now this little boy I realize he hasn't eaten all day. And so I remembered my biscuit. And I reached into my backpack and I handed it to the little boy. And there were about 20 of us in blue shirts standing around at the moment when we gave it to him. And we really expected him to grab it, gobble, run, just go somewhere where nobody could see it and eat it right up. And instead, he did something pretty remarkable. He looked at the biscuit for the first time all day. He looked at me and he made eye contact. And then he ripped open the plastic, and no one said a word. No one told this child what to do. But he broke the biscuit in half, and he handed half to the baby. And 20 of us cried. It was the most remarkable example of just pure humanity that I have seen in all 100 trips that I've taken. But I tell you the story, one, because I think he's pretty remarkable, but secondly, because in all candor, the little boy in a refugee camp who didn't even have shoes or a winter coat in the middle of the winter, if he knew enough, inherently just knew enough, to take that biscuit and give half to a child, just think what everybody in this room could accomplish if we put our minds to it. So thank you very much for having me tonight, and thank you again to our hosts. And then I'm going to introduce, I have to remember who's up, I want to introduce
Mark and Anna Maria.
Mark and Anna Maria.
Oh, to Mark and Anna Maria, who are dear friends and who are the ones who have provided our challenge grant for tonight. So let me introduce you tonight. Thank you.
You didn't tell me that we were going to follow.
Okay. I'm Cuba, but this is going to be really short. So I just want to tell you that how we came to UNICEF. 4 years ago, we were watching TV, and we saw the lifeless body of a little boy, Alan Kurdi, who had washed up. He was a Syrian refugee. He had drowned, and he washed up on the shore in Turkey. And Mark and I looked at each other. We said, we got to do something. Put the remote down. Called the UNICEF. Got the office put us through to Sherry. And 4 years later, we have a UNICEF family, and we are just so lucky. And we've been able to have these amazing friends like Caryl and Marnie and Michael. And there were so many people that we've met. And so to that end, I just want to thank you. This is such an incredible opportunity for us to do good, especially since I'm a refugee myself, and I have been blessed, and my family has been blessed to be welcomed by this amazing country and have all these great opportunities, good health, and everything that we've been given. So to that end, as a grateful refugee and very nice person. My husband, Mark.
Now I have to follow her. our focus and our philanthropy since the beginning of our foundation. And making the decision of where you place your money is really, you can't hear me?
No, I'm talking to my husband.
Matching your gift.
Picking the right partners to help you to make the commitments the most effective is one of the biggest challenges. And from the very beginning, when we met Sherry and Michael and of course Caryl, we knew right away that the organization at UNICEF was really very much aligned with what our objectives were. And having come from from the UN Foundation, where we helped to launch the Nothing But Nets program many years ago, and had the UN as our partner in that, we understood clearly what was necessary to get the job done. Caryl clearly and most beautifully outlined the things that UNICEF can do and how effectively they do them. I would say that one of the things to me that's most important is the constant communications and transparency and the commitment that they have to doing what it is that they need to do to make sure that we are represented as donors in the right way. And saving lives is the most important thing. I would just like to finish by saying that about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, there was a commitment by UNICEF to increase the amount of presence by exploring having a board, a local board here in South Florida. There are 9 regional boards throughout the United States. And when we met with Caryl and with Michael and with Sherry and went to Atlanta to meet with the board members there, it was clear to me that as South Florida, we needed to be represented. And there are no better, more generous, and people who care more about making a difference than people who are here in South Florida. And so it is my hope that, certainly tonight, that you express your commitment to saving these children's lives, but also to make a commitment to joining our cause here. We do have a steering committee which will transition into a board, and would like very much for everyone to explore that and see in what ways we may work together to accomplish the objectives that Caryl is talking about and eliminate those other 14 countries with EMT. So thank you very much, and Monica and Mike, thank you for your hospitality. Thank you for being here. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here, but before I say anything, I would like to extend our thanks and appreciation on behalf of all of you here to our host, Mr. and Mrs. Rooney, Mr. and Mrs. Gordon, for being such wonderful hosts and arranging this meeting this evening. It's really important, and I can't thank you enough on behalf of our foundation. Thank you again. I think we all know over the past several months what has happened. We have had a terrible natural disaster in Africa, whereby over 1 million people have been displaced. And we have a monster in Venezuela who is killing his own people because of political gain. Babies are dying in hospitals. People are starving, drinking sewer water. We now have a blackout in Caracas. It could not be worse, but that's where you people come in. You're the shining light that's going to save them. And that's one of the reasons these meetings are so important, because the funding to help all of these children around the world that are feeling the effects of all of these terrible tragedies, it has to come from the private sector. I know that we talk about the word eliminate. Well, what we would like to do is eliminate all the disease and the misery in the world that comes from some of these problems. But to do that, we need the funding. And so in talking to Michael, and because I have a big mouth, as people know, We would like to raise some monies tonight to get this started. And the first $10,000 check is going to come from the Yesman Foundation. Katie, can you bring this up? And especially when Mike Barton came to UNICEF, I made the remark to him that finally you found a home. You found the one place in the world where the people are caring and want to help, and that's UNICEF, regardless of what happens politically, whether it's a natural disaster, you people will be there to help. And so our thanks go out to you, and we hope there can be many more meetings like this where we can be a part of it. Thank you again
Thank you,
for being
Marty.
here this evening and for all the caring and good work that you do overall. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Hope to see you again.
My pleasure. Hello, hello. So great to see this wonderful group here tonight. My name is Sarah Haynes. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Boat Mobility, which is an electric scooter company. But my background is really, in my PhD, is in clinical psychology, which two different worlds in many ways, but what links those two together is thinking about our future and having clean energy and how we're going to leave the world. All of us here today know that our time is limited. How we spend our time, how you've chosen to spend your time tonight. We're grateful that you're here tonight. And how we spend our money also tells us where we spend, where our values are, and how we want to live, and where we want to be able to make the most impact. Mr. Maroney and Mrs. Maroney, you are incredible businessmen and women, and a lot of folks here as well, and understand where you put your money, and you want to make sure that you get back where, and you know where your money is going. What my understanding is of, which is really incredible, what UNICEF is able to do, and they're one of the top providers. They're not just a charity, they actually are a humanitarian organization. They're apolitical. They put the money where it belongs with the children and the women that are taking care of those children and their mom and maternal child health issues that are all around the world. So 88% to 90% of every dollar goes back to the children and the mothers. That is a huge, huge percentage. I'm a clinical researcher, as a Georgetown professor. If I could have those kinds of results all day long, that's where I would put my money in. So going from a research background, understanding what UNICEF does is all that based on data. They have their hands on a mine of data, of evidence-based. I met with the innovators in New York, and I was blown away. I did my PhD here in Miami, went to Silicon Valley, met with the innovators in New York, and I was so impressed with the technology that they're using with drones to go over mountains to be able to get vaccines to women and children. We have our electric scooters that have a component that we're trying to see if we can use to take the coolers with the vaccine, because we have swappable batteries and they can change them. And so we're looking at how can we use innovation, how can we use private sector to be able to solve these problems. And hand in hand, I think we can make a huge impact in the world. And to be able to know that something like tetanus that we take for granted here is so painful for that child and mother, and the stories that Caryl tells me, tells everyone to try to understand the real pain that's involved in this. As mothers, there's nothing more worse than watching your child in pain. And so if we can have an impact on that with the dollars that we spend, and we put our money and values where it is, and know that that money's going directly to the children, and know that your money's in safe hands with the incredible leadership of Caryl Stern, and all the fine gentlemen and women that are working for UNICEF. I can't say enough about this organization. I'm proud to be on the steering committee. We would love to have more folks to be able to support us in our endeavors, and I hope that we can all work together hand in hand and be able to make a huge difference on the future of children all around the world.
Thank you all. I just wanted to give another thanks to Mike and to Monica and to everyone for coming. It really, really is very appreciated. And if you'd like any more information or anything, please don't hesitate to contact any of us. I did want to say that there are some copies of Carol's book. Actually, I brought some copies of Carol's book that you're free to take on your way out to actually read that story. And any other information, or of course, if you'd like to make a donation on the way out, our young professional group here would be more than happy to help. But thank you to everyone, and Mike and Monica, thank you very much, and Carol,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.